I will now present to you the mayor of the city of Pontiac, Mayor Waterman.
Thank you for all coming today to join me in greeting the Lieutenant Governor who has come to Pontiac as a necessary stop on his Thriving Cities tour. So the governor had a list of elected officials that they wanted to meet with first. They give an idea of the policies and programs that we are concerned about. They also had invited a list of people who were coming to this meeting as well. The governor is in the house. We're so proud of Pontiac. You know that Pontiac matters on this urban agenda that they have for the state of Michigan. I want to say how well I've been in a number of these meetings with the Lieutenant Governor and how well he is leading the messaging about how we have advocates in Lansing for the things that we're concerned about and affect our cities. To actually have an urban policy that afford and look at such things that we're interested in, such as generational wealth, passing that on, education, what happens with our youth, of affordable housing, of ways to handle reentry problems for people who have been incarcerated, and certainly for economic and community development. Both are equally important. So we're happy to say that Pontiac is one of those cities that's recognized for what we have done in terms of economic development to be a thriving city. Certainly some of the most recent news with Amazon coming, we've snagged them here, opportunity zones in Pontiac, as well as the things we've done for community development as well. So we're happy to have them. We're happy to know that we have a partner in Lansing, certainly have been at a number of these meetings, and now they have come here to listen to you because this is a listening tour more than anything else about what ideas and needs that we have here for the city of Pontiac. So with that, I want to introduce a very profuse partner for our governor of the state of Michigan, who when you go and tell her that we have an installation with her picture right here in our major city buildings now, because we're so proud that our governor is here advocating for all of us in urban areas. And with that, I want to introduce the very distinguished partner who has brought this urban agenda right here to the heart of Pontiac, as well as 19 other cities around the state, our own Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilbert.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I really appreciate y'all being here. And thank you for, we tried to do this a little earlier, but, something came up. We were trying to negotiate a budget, and we still working on that. A budget that's gonna work for everybody in Michigan. But we're here to talk about something very specific, and I wanna thank you, Mayor Waterman, for hosting. I wanna thank this facility. This facility is amazing. Appreciate everyone coming here and participating. We're here to talk about what it means to create and how we can create thriving cities all across Michigan is what I've been focused on. But today, this afternoon, we're talking about it. So let me give you some background. This conversation around improving the quality of life for people who live in cities is grounded in conversations that Governor Whitmer and I have been having since we were on the campaign trail in the fall of 2018. It's our responsibility to protect the public safety of people in Michigan. And we believe to create the conditions for as many people in as many communities across the state to be successful. Well, more people live in cities in Michigan than don't. So in order to improve quality of life for a large number of people, we thought we needed to work together to improve quality of life for people who live in Michigan. So born from that, we launched this Thriving Cities Tour in August. And this is an 18-stop listening tour across the state of Michigan, where we are going to cities that are as broad and diverse as the state of Michigan. Yes, we've been to Detroit and Pontiac, we've been to Kalamazoo, we've been to Marquette, we've been to Jackson, we've been to Dearborn, we're going to Southfield later this afternoon. We're going to 18 different cities because every city is its own little beautiful pearl, right? Every city is unique, has a unique set of challenges, a unique set of opportunities. So we want to recognize and be responsive to that by going and having conversations with people who are actually doing the work on the ground, whether it's part of your business, whether it's part of your advocacy, part of your activism and community work, people who are doing work on the ground to improve quality of life in a number of key areas. And those key areas, we call them buckets, are the following. Not listed in any particular order, because I'm going to get to how y'all order them in a second. But improving quality of life for kids in cities, creating generational economic opportunity, improving access to affordable and accessible housing, improving and increasing environmental quality and justice, and increasing access to transportation and mobility services. These are the 5 buckets that we want to explore in this conversation, that we've been exploring these conversations all across the state. Now, before anybody gets mad at me, I understand that this is not an exhaustive list of all the issues facing people. Okay, I get that. I also understand that all of these issues, and like anything else, everything is connected. Everything overlaps and intersects and impacts one thing or the other. I appreciate, respect, and know that. The reason, though, that we pick these 5 is because we think they are points of leverage. We think that if you can improve or increase quality in one or more of these areas, you can impact almost any other aspect of life. And I think a good example of that is, let's say, the thing you wanted to focus on or talk about was violence. Young people and youth violence, excuse me. Well, if you improved quality of life for kids in cities, if you increased access to generational economic opportunity, that could help you respond to, address, and hopefully lessen challenges with violence amongst young people. So we think these are points of leverage. Everybody who RSVP'd to this meeting, and I appreciate all of you who did, we asked you to complete a survey. And in that survey, we asked you to rank 1 through 5, those 5 buckets about what was the most important. And again, I know everything's connected, some things depend on other things. We asked you if you could pick, one is number 1, what would you pick? And I'm going to go through in this presentation and show you what the consensus was for what was the most important thing that people said. I want to tell you what's going to happen. So we're going to have this conversation. I'm going to ask you all a really specific question. So say, what are the things you want to see happen? What are the practices you want to see us take up? What are the programs you want to see expanded? What are the policies you want to see enacted so that quality of life can improve in one or more of these areas? And when you're talking, when you're sharing those things, we got a whole team of people on the back of the room who are listening. This meeting is being broadcast currently live on Facebook, so the people who are not able to be here physically can see and observe it. We want to make sure that we get these ideas in, because my team is going to take them back and compile them, because they're going to say, you know what, we heard all these great ideas. We're going to think about what the best, the things that the government can do. What is the best level of government for those ideas to be implemented on? Should it be implemented at the city level or the county level? Should there be state action taken through legislation? If we have our whole body of legislative delegations here. Through legislation, should it be taken at the state level through executive action, like can the governor do an executive order to help make this happen? Or do we just need to advocate our members of Congress, our senators, our federal delegation to do for changes in federal law? Our team's going to compile these things and make a set of recommendations that we will reflect back to the group. It says this is what we think the best way to implement these ideas are. All of this is so that in early 2020, we're going to be able to say that we, as a collective, the people in this room, the people in similar rooms in 17 different cities across the state of Michigan, have come together to formulate an agenda for creating thriving cities all across the state of Michigan. This is not an agenda that's coming down from the governor's office. It's not me coming to Pontiac and telling you what y'all need to do to make a better city. This is us coming together to determine how we will move forward together. And I'm excited about that prospect. So with that, I'm going to go through a couple of slides. Okay, okay, Bobby's going to do stuff. That's Bobby in the back. Thank you, Bobby. So, everybody, like I said, who RSVP completed a survey. And in that survey, when you had to rank number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the issues, 43% of people who responded to the survey said that either the most important or the second most important issue out of those 5 was quality of life for kids in cities. Quality of kids in cities. So now just to put that in comparison's sake, one other city picked that, that we went to, and that was Benton Harbor. Other cities have chosen one or the other, but there's now 2 cities that have chosen kids in cities. And I just want to give you a taste. We have a couple of representative quotes from the people who responded in this way, because I don't know if y'all can read that. So it says that kids need safe and affordable drinking water at home and in schools. And education is not funded or supported in a fair and equitable manner. I think these two are interesting choices for this representative sample because this is framed as kids in cities, broadly on purpose. Because, yes, education is a part of what impacts a child's quality of life. But as this quote shows, so is their environmental surrounding and context, and the water that they drink, and the infrastructure that supports the water that they drink. So, kids in cities is what we're going to focus on. Now, this doesn't mean that everybody, if you pick something that was not kids in cities, you still be talking to me, okay? I promise. What I would like you to do, though, is as you think about whatever your number one issue was, whatever your ideas are in that area, I want you to think about how they connect to quality of life for kids in cities, because that is the consensus amongst this group of the number one thing, okay? That makes sense? No response means yes, it makes sense.
Clicking.
All right. I want to tell a story quickly that I think really captures why this Thriving City Tour is important. So it's a story of a young woman named Jacquees. She lives in Detroit, like I do. She's from Detroit. The top right picture is my second favorite picture right here, and that is Jacquees getting a bath in the sink. How many of y'all have children? And how many of y'all give your children a bath in the sink? Okay, I'm sorry. Let me take a time. I am so shocked at how few people bathe their children in the sink. I have a 4-month-old baby right now that I bathe in the sink. And I bathe my twins in the sink, but apparently that's not the mission. Nobody raises their hand. Okay, all right, thank you. Let's just be real for a second. Anyway, so Jacquees grew up in Detroit, and she went to a combination of public and private school. She was a basketball player. She was a happy kid. And then Jacquees, the picture in the top left is Jacquees when she was 16. She gave birth to a baby girl. And when you have kids, whether you're young or old, but especially when you're really young, you have to make choices. You got to decide, what are you going to do now to take care of your baby? Jacquees was pretty fortunate. Her family, they really dug deep to help her. The community really dug deep to support her. She was able to get connected to some programs. She was able to get lucky and be able to find her way through high school to finish high school. She was able to go to the best university in the history of the world, the University of Michigan. And no apologies. Jacquees graduated from Michigan. And that picture here, I can actually reach this. That picture right there, that's her graduating from Michigan. The picture next to it on the left is her graduating from Cooley Law School, law degree, okay? It's great, she finished college, law day. Now, she finished college with not one, but $288,000 in student loan debt, which is a whole other conversation. But she finished school. And those two pictures are her with her daughter at those different points in her life. She went on, she's practicing law, she's doing really fantastic. She helps to support entrepreneurs in Detroit through this thing called the Build Institute. She helps to organize this nonprofit community project called Detroit Soup, where people get together in a room that's bigger than this every month. They pay $5, they eat dinner together. Then someone comes up and gives a presentation like I'm giving right now about a community project or an initiative or something that needs to be supported. And at the end of that presentation, that group gets all those $5 donations. It's a community investing in itself to move a project forward. So she helps to organize that in Detroit. The most important picture on this slide is the one that's at the bottom left, and that is Jacquees' baby girl graduating from Michigan State. There's balance, right? Balance. So, I tell this story for a lot of reasons. But I don't tell it because everybody needs to be like Jacquees. I don't tell it because this is like one particular hero that we just need to lift up above all people. The reason I tell this story is because this young woman, as intelligent and ambitious and hungry and resourceful, there are people who have all those characteristics who live in every city and every community across Michigan. When we talk about creating the conditions for as many people as possible to be successful, what we mean is how do we remove, reduce, eliminate the barriers to people unlocking their full potential, regardless of where they live, regardless of their circumstance. When we're increasing opportunities for kids in cities, we are breaking down those barriers. When we're creating generational opportunity, we are breaking down those barriers. That's what this is about. How can we get creative so that this can be true for everybody? Because somebody that's smart, somebody that does all that, imagine what they could do if they didn't have to fight against systems that are fighting against them. That's the potential we need to unlock. So coming forward here, I have a few statistics that are looking at the city of, these are cities specific, right? Okay, they're looking at the city of Pontiac. And I'm going to give some definitions to put these into context. We're looking at income. Median household income in Pontiac is $31,400. The unemployment rate is defined really specifically for this slide, okay? We did this so that we could more easily compare these rates across the cities that we're visiting. We're counting the unemployment rate amongst a set of people who are 16 years or older, who are not currently retired, and who are actively looking for work. That's a different set of people than the sort of broad unemployment rate that you hear about at the state level or federal level. Again, older than 16, not retired, actively looking for work. Amongst that set of people, the city of Pontiac, that rate was 14.9%. And then finally, 17% of adults who live in Pontiac have some sort of degree after they graduate from high school. Now, I mean degree specifically. I mean an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, master's, or so on. That number does not include people who have some sort of professional training or certification that you can get from some accredited institution. This is degrees specifically for this slide. So this right here, I wanted to show, of those 5 buckets we talked about, I just wanted to show the distribution. These are all of the people who chose a particular bucket as number 1 only, as its number 1 issue. So you can see kids in cities was in the lead with 43%, but very close to that, I don't think this is accidental, was creating generational economic opportunity, with 41% of people saying that was the most important. And that's followed up then by affordable and available housing, mobility and transportation, and environmental quality and justice. Now let me be really clear, because you see something with a 0 on it, right? Okay? So the environmental justice is at 0%. That does not mean that environmental quality and justice is not important. All that means is when asked to pick a number 1 thing amongst these 5, nobody selected it as number 1. It doesn't mean it doesn't matter. I want to be really clear about that, because there still are issues that we need to address in all these areas. So, there's a standard for defining whether or not housing is affordable, and it's or whether a person is paying too much for their housing. And it's if you are spending 30% or less, or 30% or more of your monthly income on housing, then that housing is not affordable to you. So this slide just has the average cost to own a place or rent a place in Pontiac. The most important numbers on here are the bottom 2. Showing that if you had an average wage job in Pontiac, you would need to work 40 hours to own and rent an average place. And if you have a minimum wage job, you need to work 79 hours. It just shows that there's work to be done to make sure more people have access to housing and have access to good jobs, right? When we talk about environmental quality and justice, so there are these things that are listed here about air quality and pollution and water quality. I want to define environmental justice just so we're all on the same page. What I mean by that is a lot of the places where you have seen environmental disasters or happenings or catastrophes, or where you see polluters located, frankly, is often directly adjacent to or in the midst of communities where low-income and low-wealth people live, or where people of color live. And we feel like that is the issue of justice. And so that's what we would say environmental justice. And it's also a challenge because When you see these things happen, one of the things that's a little more insidious is that it often robs us of our opportunity to experience public space. Whether it's grounds that have been contaminated so kids can't play on them. Whether it's air that is hard to breathe so you don't want to send your kids outside. It's robbing us of our public safety experiences of those spaces. A quick note here on education. So this is looking at, again, for kids who have a Pontiac City address. The graduation rate from high school compared to the state is 60% versus 80%. For dropping out of high school, about 17.5% compared to 8.7% for the state. And then almost 3/4 of the children are eligible for free or reduced lunch at schools. Just means that we have, again, opportunities to work toward for education for kids in cities. For mobility, transit, and transportation, our roads are terrible, but y'all already knew that, okay? We need to fix them, and we need to raise money to do that. This is about also our infrastructure broadly, our bridges, to make sure they are safe. One of the things that mess up about broken roads is not that they're just annoying, but they're actually dangerous. This is a safety issue. And I want to talk, this also mentions, or is part of this, is public transportation. And transit matters. Many of you may not know this, but immediately before I became lieutenant governor, I was a full-time bus rider in Detroit with my family for almost 3 years. Transit and transportation matters have to be accessible, reliable, affordable, frequent enough to be useful. These things are important at a city level and at a regional level. A little bit about our priorities as an administration. So we introduced a budget in March that we believe was responsive to a lot of these areas, a lot of these needs. So when we're talking about education, it's ensuring that yes, every kid has access to a high quality education that prepares them for success after they graduate from high school. And we think we would prefer that would be happening through traditional public schools. Talking about transit and transportation, we have funding in there for mobility projects that improved access to transit for people who are elderly or people who have disabilities. With the understanding that if something worked for those communities, then it probably would work for all of us. So that was the right place to experiment. We're talking about clean drinking water, this environmental quality, just straight up. People should be confident in water they drink in Michigan. It's ridiculous that that is something that we have to assert, but it is something that we have to assert given our recent history in the state of Michigan. We're talking about closing the skills gap. So we had that slide earlier that said that 17% of people in Pontiac had a degree. Well, we introduced a couple of programs to ensure that the state of Michigan broadly could meet a goal that the governor set during the State of the State address, which was that 60% of people who live in Michigan would have some sort of credential, a degree, professional training certificate, some sort of certification after they graduate from high school by the year 2030. So in order to hit that, we put in place two programs. One called Michigan Reconnect, which says that for every adult in Michigan, you would have tuition-free access to training from a community college or a certified training institution. So that if you wanted to get these skills in the front of your career, wanted to change or level up your skills in the middle of your career, or wanted to try a different pathway toward the end of your career, money would not be a barrier to you getting the training you need to do what you want to do and be who you want to be as a professional. We also put on the table something called the Michigan Opportunity Scholarship Program, which conceptually is expanding upon the idea that many communities have experienced through Promise programs, which says that any student in high school earning a B average or higher would be able to have a tuition-free pathway to a degree from a community college, or tuition assistance on the first 2 years of a 4-year degree in Michigan. That's what it's saying is, again, we don't want money to stand between people and their growth, people and their opportunity. That was sort of the anchor of that. And then last but not least, I talked about the roads that need money. Okay, we need to raise this money to fix our infrastructure in the right way so it can unlock the investments that we want to make in education and in other forms of infrastructure. But I want to now bring this back to Pontiac. How to create a more thriving Pontiac. How do we improve quality of life for people who live in Pontiac? So I want to ask all of you, but I want to start with someone who said that quality of life for kids in cities was the most important question, most important issue here. What do you want to see happen? What is the practice that you want to see taken up? What is the program you wanted to see started, expanded, or ended? What is the policy you want to see enacted at any level of government? What do you want to see happen to improve quality of life for kids in cities? All right, the floor is now yours. All right. Did she say that already? Okay, all right. So we got one microphone, okay? So we have to share it. Okay. So I can only really reach up to this first row, so I want you to come forward. Oh, it's long? Okay. No, I saw that. I'm trying to deal with walk the microphone out there, or that's what it is. Okay. All right, we got a lot of cord. Okay. And you say your name.
Kelly Williams, the superintendent for the Pontiac School District. First, one of your data points was not correct. We are at 75%. We were at 60% 4 years ago with our graduation rate. It is definitely about opportunities, and one is around funding. We know that it's not equitable. When Proposal A was passed, that is when it started to become a tax base. So it's based off of your zip code in regards to how much funding your district will receive. Neighboring districts around us, we're one of the richest counties in Michigan, receive $12,000 and $14,000, where Pontiac receives $7,500 to $7,600 per child. So that's the one piece that at the legislative level, that needs to change. I know that Dr. Beatty was just on TV speaking of the same issue. We have to afford those opportunities first around funding. The second piece is the opportunity where it's wonderful what Wayne State just did for Detroit, but I'm hearing that the language is specifically for the Detroit area. Could we open up that opportunity, because we have OU in partnership with us, where other universities could explore doing some options in that way? The Promise Zone is great. We have a great committee now that is raising the funds around the scholarships, but what we're finding, our students go off to college. Over 50% of them went off to college, and they returned the first year because they can't afford the housing. So eliminating some of the barriers that you spoke to earlier is what we're exploring here in the city with small groups, but if we can get some help at the state level. We had a $52 million deficit 5 years ago. It's down to 5.3. We need some relief like Detroit received.
Anybody else want to talk? Okay.
I would like to see a constitutional amendment that there is a right to an education. It appears the United States is the only country out of 180 that does not allow it. I would like to see Michigan modify our constitution that children have a right to an education. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Okay, over here, then come. Right here.
My name is Captain Newman. As you know, emergency services are center and foundations in the city. Right now we have 81 cases. FBI recommend that we have 106. The great mayor of this city and city council is doing what they can. We never get grants, maybe because we have a Republican sheriff. Anything you have to say about that?
Yeah, well, just on that directly, one of the things that wasn't on the slide about our budget priorities was our administration's commitment to increasing revenue sharing and for putting the state back on a path to actually meeting the statutory requirement of revenue sharing that exists in the state of Michigan. Revenue sharing is literally the handshake between the city municipalities or local units of government and the state that said they should get money back from the state of Michigan. And our predecessors just straight up didn't give y'all revenue sharing. Okay? So we introduced, we had a 3% increase in revenue sharing as part of our proposal. That was cut back pretty significantly by the Republicans in the legislature. Y'all legislative delegation voted against those cuts, but that's something we're going to continue to work towards, which can help deal with these kind of infrastructure and baseline services, and particularly public safety. It's one of the first things those revenue sharing dollars get used for. So, thank you.
I just want to say my name is Carlton Jones and working with workforce development, and zooming in on that area where you said kids in the city, and the second one of the generational opportunities for economic. And so as we show success in an area, what becomes the element to continue to show that it's sustainable is funding. So I'm not for sure about the Michigan Reconnect. We are using the opportunities through the Promise Zone, but I'm hoping that this Michigan Reconnect will be able to have those organizations that's coming together and trying to do just that, look at the issue of kids and workforce, and see and make sure funding is not a problem.
Thank you. I want to clarify that. So we have two sort of programs that exist in relationship with one another. So the Michigan Reconnect one is adult focused, and the Michigan Opportunity Scholarship is the one that's focused on young people, specifically those that were earning a B average in high school, would then be able to have a tuition-free pathway to community college or the first 2 years of 4-year degree. But yes,
And adult focus starts at
25.
25.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. I'm Pastor Keon Payton from Bellingham City. What I would like to see Detroit, under the leadership of Mayor Duggan, they currently have a program called the Goal Line, where they are supporting about 300 students with a partnership with the YMCA. And they provide sports, athletics programs for kids, but more importantly, they also provide academic enrichment as well as character development. And what I would like to see is how in Pontiac we can strengthen our public-private partnerships. We currently have a youth village that the residents here in the city of Pontiac voted for, where the mayor and the current administration has identified one property here on the south side where some of those programs are being afforded. But unfortunately, we're not able to expand those throughout the rest of the city. And so I would like to see how we can perhaps strengthen the public-private partnerships here in the city of Pontiac to replicate models that we know are being successful, not just allowing for athletics programs, but also academic enrichment programs, as well as character development.
All right. Who else? Yes, our host.
Hello, Kenyatta Bowman. Question about mental health in our youth, as far as having access to, unfortunately in our city, a lot of our young people have different traumas from things from growing up. Parents may have used drugs or different things like that, or just whatever, lack of food, things like that will cause trauma in children as far as access to mental health, so that they can learn how to deal with some of the things that they have encountered in their youth.
So on this question directly of mental health services and supported after the state, so we need to first recognize that there was a sort of targeted disinvestment in that infrastructure in the state of Michigan during the Engler administration, so 20-some years ago. And people need this support. And we see it manifest itself in a number of ways. One of the reasons in that budget proposal that we put forward, that we increased a significant amount of funding for children who, need more behavioral support, is because of this challenge. I also am co-chairing the task force on the county jail system in the state of Michigan, including child incarceration. And one of the other things that we see is that people are getting mental health services from the jail system itself, which was not designed to deliver mental health services, and so therefore does not deliver very good mental health services. And so then people continue to spiral when they don't have the help they need. So we care very deeply about sort of reimagining that infrastructure, what it should look like going forward. We don't necessarily need to recreate what existed. We need to have something that makes sense for today and going forward, and something that our administration is committed to working with a lot of the county mental health agencies to help do that, and community mental health agencies to make that real. Okay. Yes. Here.
I just wanted to bring to attention to Commissioner Angela Powell. Just so everyone knows in this room, Lieutenant Governor had a chance to meet with the elected officials and some of the community activists before. So I didn't see a lot of hands going up, so I wanted to say, he really kind of told us to shut up and let y'all talk. So because we have him here and we have real issues here, I need y'all to put him on his radar so we can get our city changed just like what they're doing across the state. Thank you very much.
She's not lying. I did tell them they weren't supposed to talk to you.
Yeah, you really start talking.
My name is Veronica Taylor. I have a ministry called Howard Youth Service, take care of inmates locked up around the world. And I want the Lieutenant Governor to tell you about his plan to help take care of the re-entry program for the people that's coming in. So Jeff talk about it all the time. He started this to help the people to come out, to be able to be retrained, to come back into the world. So I want you to listen to him very carefully because it's an ultimate plan that he has. So he talked with us with Michigan United about it, and we have did some research to help get this done. Now we partner with LBR, Life Beyond Entry, and yes, I am an advocate for this city of Pontiac and around the world. I see him all our life. We kind of friends by that way. So to say, y'all listen to him because he's very intelligent and not only gorgeous with a beautiful new baby. Okay? I love
All right, I'm not about to talk too long about this, but suffice it to say that we talk about recognizing everybody's potential. That includes recognizing people who have been locked up for whatever reason have potential, and they are still people, and we need to recognize, respect, and embrace them in that way. So one of the things that we want to do is work with the places that people are returning to. When somebody gets out of jail, they got to go home somewhere, right? They're going to go home to a city or to a community. And so ensuring that we're working with those communities to have what they need to be able to service people, to ensure that there are the services that can support people once they get home so they do not recommit offenses and they're able to come back, whether that's for younger people or for older. So we got a lot of stuff, like I said, and something that's very important to me is our criminal justice lead in our administration.
In industrial circles, we have something called quality control and quality assurance. I'm wondering whether it would be possible someday soon to apply those two principles to public education and the distribution of funds from Lansing. I don't see any of that going on, and when you're spending about $1 billion a year, I think it's high time.
Right here and then right here. Can you stand, please?
Hello, Lieutenant Governor. My name is Renee Beckley. I'm a precinct delegate for the Michigan Democratic Party, Precinct 16, Pontiac. I've been trying to contact MDOT, your boss, the governor. We have a life and death situation here. They practically cut the street, Perry Street, in half for some bike lanes. According to MDOT's own statistics, only 8% of people in Pontiac ride bikes, 92% in cars. You probably saw me, or if you want to look it up on YouTube, Pontiac Bike Lane Battle, WDIB. I was interviewed with Paula Tubman, Councilman Randy Carter was also there, and Doris Taylor Burks, Councilwoman for District 6. We would like those removed. If you can tell the governor to get an executive order to MDOT or an executive directive, because when the snow hits, somebody's going to die, sir. There's 2 schools on that street. I'm picking up a child being hit because the people, they go around the bike lanes and speed in them. And there's nothing wrong with the bikers and the rider, but it's the wrong street. And we would like the sidewalks widened instead. Perry Street was the wrong place for those bike lanes. We'd like them removed as soon as possible. Thank you.
I'll respond to the last 2. So on this immediately specifically, so I want to make sure that we get make sure one of the staff people who's here with me today, I want you to give them information on this so we can, somebody follow what you're okay, there we go. You got good representation. All right. Sir, for your question about quality control, you talking about stuff like Six Sigma type processes and things like that. And the short answer to your question is, I think as we evolve in terms of how governance works, we're trying to design in more measures for ensuring that the right things are happening with dollars and public resources. That's really important to us. And as the engineer, I appreciate what you said with that. So I think that's something that'll be part of any package of expenditures going forward.
Hi, my name is Kimber Bishop Yankee. I live in a neighboring community, but I have found myself working in Pontiac thanks to Representative Carter. Last April, I tried to help a 21-year-old girl who's homeless, and I found that basically the services that are offered are scarce and not connected. So I've learned there are 2,400 homeless students in Oakland County alone. Pontiac and Royal Oak are fifth in the state for homelessness people. So what I would like to see is a coordination of organizations working together to serve homeless people instead of having homeless people have to call 20 numbers like I tried to call to get the help and found it overwhelming. We're asking people who have nowhere to live out of their car, who have no access to cell phones, transportation, to try to get services. And not only is it disconnected, I think there's a lot of organizations doing work, but they're all trying to go after the same rental unit and after the same funding that's non-existent. So we have 20 organizations trying to get, 5 things out of the same organization. So I'd like to bring your attention to our homelessness issue in Michigan and Oakland County.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Larry Lipton. I live less than a mile from the Pontiac city limits, but I'm Opdyke and Square Lake Road. I'm not a resident. But I want to kind of come back to a couple of things that accountability and mental health services and education, to me it all ties together. I've heard the governor from the campaign forward talk about accountability for charter schools. And I'd love to know if we're getting toward that. Funding of public schools, to me, is critical to education. We need an equitable formula for funding, and I don't know if the legislature and the governor and you are working on that, but that is necessary to really elevate the quality of public schools where needed. Based on, I've heard Chris Gray talk about a needs-based, whether it's special needs or whatever. I don't understand that issue well, but I hope that you can add some details to that. And in terms of mental health services, I was a school counselor in the 70s. Mental health issues can begin at any age, so that needs to be integrated from preschool on for children who need it as they grow older, so that we don't have those people with mental health issues treated in prisons where it just really is too late. Thank you.
Yeah, so on the, thank you, Larry, for that. So on the education funding piece, so in the budget proposal we put forward, it had this once-in-a-generation investment in K-12 education, public education, $500 million, $570 million. And the way that the sort of core element of that was moving us to something called a weighted foundation allowance, which was based off of the recommendations from, there was a coalition of school superintendents, looking at you, the coalition of school resource funding collaborative, right? They just set recommendations about how to bring more equity to how schools are funded, recognizing that different districts and different children within different districts have different needs, and the funding mechanism needs to be responsive to that. That is not, that recommendation was not a wholesale revisit of Proposal A, while that is a conversation that needs to be had, but it was an attempt to bring equity to that funding, and this was the first budget proposal, or education budget proposal in the history of the state of Michigan that was actually responsive to those needs. That's something that we care about very deeply and want to make sure it becomes a reality in Michigan.
So So one of the things that happens each time we make a visit is that people share a concern, and then someone in the group is aware of actual solutions happening regarding that concern. So the senator actually wanted to share something that is directly related to the homelessness issue that was brought forward.
Thank you, Senator Rosemary Bayer. Here. Just about the homelessness initiatives, Kimber is aware of one of the good news pieces this year in the budget that we're still working on is a grant that we got for Oakland County to build a blueprint. So to lift it up and to do things like identifying resources and how do we work together. So take a strategic view of looking at the whole problem and how do we solve it, not just the individual services that we also need. So that's really good news and something that we're going to work on this year. We'll do this for Oakland County and hopefully the rest of the state.
Thank you,
Lieutenant Governor Doug Smith with Oakland Community College. Three quick things. One, the Reconnect program I think is very critical because our attention has always been on kind of and it's important with matriculation of high school students into college degrees, but 50% of the students that come to OCC come from employment skills. And that is to get them into an employment market, to keep a job, enhance their situation with the employer. And so the Reconnect program is very, very important. We haven't had enough funding for upskilling America, upskilling people who are unemployed, underemployed, or just wrongly employed and want new jobs. Secondly, I think one of the things that I would hope the state would look at, we talk about STEM education, and we have one of the most powerful first robotics movements in the entire country, and it's one that ought to be looked at more to try to see if we can't make it. It's not just an after-school activity, and somehow that can be better supported by the state. And finally, very specific, another message to MDOT. We've been working for 5 years to try to take the roads on either side of downtown and make at least part of those roads two-way streets so that the residential neighborhoods can have more access to downtown. Right now, the way the loop is established with 6-7 lanes, it's very difficult to get into the city from even the neighborhoods that surround it. MDOT has a plan, we've been working with them for a long time, but it's always money. But somehow that has to, I think, need more priority. It would really help the vibrancy of the city to be able to deal with the road system around the city. Correct, Mayor?
You want to answer this question first, or the question? What is the question? Or are you just talking like you normally? I'm Tom Kimball. I'm with the OU Pontiac Initiative, Baker College Board, and the OCC Foundation Board. Improving the quality of life for the city is very simple. The first priority, I think, to make that happen is Lansing has to become more civil and give us the money that we need to do it by getting along with each other. Okay, I know that's a hard one to take, but it's reality. As long as you guys have disagreements with the budget, that means we can't get the money that we need to initiate those 5 key initiatives. The second thing is this city has 60,000 people, and those 60,000 people put about $500 million in our local banks. And they get about $10 million or $15 million back in CRA. And the banks take that investment money from this city and give loans to Birmingham, Bloomfield, and other cities. We're asking you and the governor to talk to these banks and say, hey, treat that city right. A couple of banks are doing that, but for the most majority, it's a tragedy how this city is treated in terms of CRA. I know that it's an FDIC issue, but the governor could play a major role in making the changes.
Yeah, I appreciate that whole points. I mean, I would say that I don't know that I think it's that hard to work together. I think it's important that we do that. I think it's also important that we advocate for what we believe is right for the state. And so that's what we are going to always do. And it's one of the reasons why we made the choice to work and not shut down the government. Because that would have been, we think, really problematic. But we think that we need to work not only together with the other people who are in Lansing, but we need to work together with our municipal leaders. And one of the reasons why we want to do things like restore revenue sharing, one of the reasons why we want to do things like support, talk about OCC, and increasing funding for community colleges. These were some of the things that there was disagreement on. And so that's what we're trying to work toward, to continue to fight for that.
Hi, most of these people probably know what I'm going to talk about, but Judy Wilson, I'm a Pontiac Arts Commissioner and the new director of the Pontiac Creative Arts Center. I wanted to just weave arts and culture into this conversation and would like that to be in your picture as you guys listen to and develop this agenda. It really addresses three key things that I heard mentioned here today. We all know about arts and culture being a destination sort of builder, creative placemaking and all that. So that's an important piece. It has been, since they started stripping the schools of arts and culture and stripping the funding, which was back, I think, in Engler's administration, the quality of life in Michigan education has been dropping and dropping and dropping. My colleague here, when we worked together, had a really good expression for that. We are cutting the kids off at the knees and expecting them to run a race. So I think arts has a really important piece in education, taking it from STEM to STEAM, which people have heard about, but really how the arts develop the type of thinking that's required to be successful in science, technology, engineering, and math, seeing relationships between seemingly unrelated things. It's that kind of thinking that a lot of new hire candidates don't possess. And we hear that in automotive and all other sorts of business sectors. And then the mental health piece. A very important part of the puzzle is providing access, not just to the youth. And I've seen it firsthand transform people's lives who are going through serious, diagnosed mental illness. And how can we, speak or advocate for this in a way that legislators will listen and start really taking it seriously, not glaze over because that woman's up there talking about arts and culture again.
So thank you for that. This is actually a really good example of something that I want to make sure I hit. So, can y'all see the screen? First of all, can y'all see the screen? All right, let's see what's on the bottom of it. Yes, yes. Do you see what's on the bottom of the screen? Yeah. Thank you. All right, we still look good. There's an email address on the bottom of the screen. So I talked about the question, what is the practice, program, or policy you want to see enacted? This is a good example. So what can we do to ensure that arts and culture are infused into whatever solutions that we build? I need something specific on that. What's the specific way you want to see that infused? And when you think of that, I want you to email me that. Send that information, send that example, send those supplemental materials for that question or any other thing that comes to mind for you about improving quality of life in the city of Pontiac. About any of the 5 buckets. When you have additional ideas, information, insights, supplemental things, please send that to us. That is how our team is going to be using that to compile what we're hearing in these conversations. It's very important. This is essentially the parallel public comment process to this particular meeting. Okay.
Lieutenant Governor, it's good to see you again. Last time we met, I was the Vice President of the Black Caucus of Macomb County. Now I'm the pastor here at Pontiac Missionary Baptist Church, but I'm also the chairperson for the Pontiac 2020 census, and I'm also the co-chair for the faith-based community for the county. Here's my question. Everybody talking about money. We can get money if everybody does the census. And so what we're asking is that I called some of the senators and they told me, well, that's a local thing we don't get involved in. We need every senator, every House of Representative to say everyone count. We want to count everybody because we're not receiving money. All of this is volunteer work. So we asking for our state legislators to get together and say in one big shout, we all count, that everybody counts when we're doing the census, because that would help pay for the schools, help pay for the roads, help pay for things that we still fight to get money for. If we get this done, we can have money to take care of Pontiac, and we will be able to do the right things for our youth.
So I promise I did not plant this question about the census. I want to say just directly that your legislative delegation is in full support of that. And one of the things that we are still negotiating over when we're talking about the budget process is the fact that Republicans cut funding for state census work. Okay? We believe that there is strength in numbers. We established by executive order a state complete count committee that the governor is the chair of and I am the vice chair of, because this is important. And there are some local complete count committees of different communities, including the one that you're a leader of, so I appreciate that work. The reason this is really critical, I don't like to think of the census as a defensive thing. I don't like to think of the census that we need to count so they don't take stuff from us, all right? I want to think of this as something that is affirmative, that we step up and we can actually claim the things that are ours in Michigan for everyone participating. We need to remove all the barriers to participating in the census. One of those barriers this year is going to be the primary way to complete the census is on the internet. All you know somebody who does not have internet access in their home. These are things that we need to work toward, and we need to work doubly hard in Michigan because the federal government, the Trump administration, has cut resources for census activity. Michigan used to be in a state in a region that had 3 states in it, now it has 8, with the same number of staff people and the same number of dollars. So we have to work that much harder at the state level and the local level to ensure that we get a full representation of our communities in Pontiac, Southeastern Michigan, across the entire state, that we are all counted accurately so that we can have what is ours. So thank you for bringing that up.
I arranged that. Hi. My name is Eli Vitanzo, and lead is a potent neurotoxin. We have lead service lines that are solid lead pipes that deliver drinking water to homes throughout the state of Michigan, but especially in our urban centers. In Pontiac, we have many lead service lines. We have the highest number of lead service lines in our urban centers where people are already struggling to pay their water bills. And everybody needs access to safe and affordable drinking water, and nobody should be drinking water out of a lead pipe. So we need to have targeted grant programs for our urban centers to help them get their lead service lines out of the ground to make sure that everybody has access to safe water. We have great new requirements in the state of Michigan to replace those lead service lines, but we need the funding to go further.
So thank you for that. I agree with you 100%. It's one of the reasons why in the budget that we put forward, we had $120 million focused on this particular problem, specifically on service line replacement, on research on contamination from lead and other heavy contaminants, including PFAS, ensuring that water quality was real, connecting people to the resources to replace fixtures in their homes, that even if your service line is replaced, but the fixtures in your home may still enable that deletion to your water. It's really critical to us. Again, it is unconscionable that this is something that we have to deal with in the Great Lakes State, but nevertheless it's something that we need to respond to. And this is also something that is part of the ongoing negotiation for a supplemental budget, because that $120 million was also something that Republicans cut from the budget that we proposed. So this is what we're trying to work toward.
Thank you, and I thank you for taking the time to come once again. I know your time is limited. You're trying to cover all 18 cities here, not today, but this has been a great conversation. And yes, we were, most of us were elected officials who were dutiful public servants, did not try to hog the time here for this meeting, although we hear that a lot of the questions that came up concerns were the same things you have dealt with. So we know we're aligned in those kinds of agendas, and we didn't plan all these questions. We know that there are things that you've been working on. I would also like to thank my staff here, my executive staff. Would you stand, please? All these people who work for the city, deputy mayor. To carry all these initiatives glad you talked about revenue sharing. The loss of revenue sharing for the city of Pontiac has been about $50 million. $50 million, which makes such a difference. So I'm glad to hear that that is a first priority to restore that, because as you asked for these initiatives, which would be better done at the city level versus the state level. A lot of these things, we've got the partnerships, we've got the will to do it, but to get the money back in our coffers. Right now, what we're dealing with is that the budget that I have now, about $34 million, is about half what they had in the 70s and 80s. So with not that many fewer people, but our staff has to find innovative, creative ways of dealing the same thing, delivering the same service. People still want their potholes filled, still want the lights on in the streets, but they got to find ways to get that done with about half the revenue budget. So that's what we're dealing with right now, and the creative ways to do that. So one of the ways we're doing it is partnerships. A lot of you who are here are part of the partnerships. We've had the partnership with Bowen University. These are the ways we've helped to leverage the funding we do have. Doing our youth rec center you mentioned, a lot of the services we provide to our youth and throughout the city are done through partnerships, and we look for more partners to do that. So we just want to let you know that we are live with you in a lot of these thoughts. And if we can get some of that revenue sharing money back, we can do lots of things with people who have ideas. I thank the people who are working for us, who represent us, who are talking about ways that they can help at the state level to get that funding. And it's our county executive who also had to leave. That's a great plan. So thank you for coming, once again, for answering all our questions, and we are with you on this agenda.